let's talk first about when we realized the market shifted. And Matt, you mentioned that it was like the latter part of summer. How do you notice those changes? Are they instinctive to you? Are they a matter of functionality for different properties that we're showcasing and how those properties are reacting to the market? How did you actually notice that there was a shift?
I think, well, at the time I had a listing that was needed a lot of work, right? So, like, I feel like, all right, so whenever the market's been good for years, right? So it's been great, right? So when you have that
Great. I mean, it's been chaotic.
It's been chaotic, but it's been, come on, let's not beat around the bush here. It's like,
great for sellers.
It's been great for sellers for a few years, right? And
Absolutely.
And especially if your house is like HGTV, right? Like if you've got that.
What was that? HGTV?
Whatever. I'm not going to say your way.
Come on, you have to try.
I lost a lot of the accent, but not everything.
Yeah, well,
What section of Boston again?
If anybody's wondering, that's HGTV.
Yeah. Anyway, so
Matt style.
So those TV shows that show all these beautiful houses, right? So,
so funny.
So if it looks like that, you knew you were going to get like multiple bids. You knew you were just going to get 20 offers. You knew you were going to do all this, right? And when you had a house that needed a lot of work in a really nice town like Ridgewood, Hohokus, Glenrock, Wyckoff, all these towns, if you had a house that needed work, you're still going to get a lot of bids, right? You're still going to get maybe 4 or 5 bids, and you're still going to get a lot of energy from it. I had a listing at the ward towards the end of summer where the data showed that we were getting minimal showings, and it was priced really good. And we're getting minimal showings.
What was the price point?
It was $8.99, which in Glenrock is now becoming really entry point. Unless it's a complete dump. But and it was a nice house. It had 5 bedrooms, 2.5 bathrooms, but it just needed a lot of work. A beautiful location. But I noticed like the data for the amount of showings we're getting. We did an open house. It was just not a lot of people, like enough people, but not a lot. I remember thinking at that point, wow, the market is shifting. There was a lot of talk about it because the interest rates were rising. So interest rates were about 6, 8 at the time, maybe 7. And all of a sudden, this house that needed work, the comments were, oh, too much work. I'm not going to go pay these interest rates for this sort of money. It was the moment when I thought, okay, this is it. The things are changing, and we still sold the house. We still got a good bid. We got a great buyer. I ended up getting 4 or 5 bids that were coming in on it, and actually we had 4 or 5 bids coming in, and a couple pulled out. Remember, because once they found out it was multiple bids, a few pulled out.
Oh, really?
Yeah, I didn't know that. Well,
and they pulled out. And when they pulled out, they're like, oh, our buyers are tired of this market. Our buyers are tired of multiple bid situations. We're going to pull out now. And so at that point, I was like, wow, I haven't seen this.
And that happened roughly within a week.
Yeah.
Because if you would have gone on the week before,
yeah,
it would have almost been a different circumstance,
yeah.
right? So
yeah.
How do you then, when it's a shift like that, and it's a downward shift for the seller, how do you keep the seller confident in moving forward with a potential offer that they were thinking was going to outperform what they got?
What's funny?
How did you handle that?
It's funny because we listed at $8.99, but when we sat down and we talked about it, so they had like 5 or 6. They interviewed 5 or 6 realtors, which is kind of a lot.
And of course, they hired the best.
Yeah, but that's a lot, right? Like normally people do 2 or 3. Some people just do 1, right? You walk in and it's just yours anyway. But they did like 5 or 6, and there was some wildly different pricing models came out from all of these different people. I actually went back in. I think they did a top 3. The top 3 went back in.
They did their homework.
And then they chose me. But even when they chose me, I had to come back in, and it was like another interview again, right? The last interview was more about pricing, and because everyone was so wildly different. And some had told them $1 million, And I told them straight up. I said, look, this house is not $1 million house. I explained the millionaire's tax and why people may not want to go over that. I explained many different things to them. But I told them I will get you something in the 900s, but it's definitely not going to be in the higher scale. So I already set that expectation with them. I told them we would not sell below list. I knew that was not going to happen. We did sell in the 900s, and when we got the offers were coming in, some of them were pretty good, and some of the ones that pulled out were actually higher than what we ended up taking. But the one we took was basically a cash offer. It was over the 900s. It was in the range I kind of said originally, and so they felt comfortable with that in the end anyway. They bought the house for $75,000
And it
43
sounds like
years ago.
it
So,
comes
right
down-
to them, it was like
Yeah.
amazing anyway. So,
And it sounds like it comes right back down to communication.
yeah, I always told
Period,
them.
end of story.
When I
Set
first-
a realistic expectation
Right
for
from the
them.
beginning.
And actually, the funny thing is, so you before you go to a listing appointment, right? You've done like a CMA for your client, and it's all speculative, right? Because you don't know the house, you know its location, you know bedrooms, bathrooms.
You don't know what it looks like on the
I
inside.
did a drive-by. I was like, wow, it's got beautiful curb appeal, great yard, perfect street. But you don't know what the inside looks like, right? And so when I originally came with my pricing estimate, I had $950. And that was on my pricing thing was $950. And when I sat down
You
with them,
actually wrote that down?
yeah, it was in my CMA. I had it all in my nice. I always come with a nice CMA. I knew there were, older generational people, so I had it all printed out because I don't want the.
They don't
Yeah,
want
they
it on the
can't
ad.
I don't
handle
want digital,
electronic.
they don't
You, you cannot do
So I had it all,
electronic.
I had it all
without
printed out for
photographic.
them, and I had $950. And at the end of my listing appointment, I said to them, now I have $950 in here, but I now don't believe that $950 is the right number. And I said, I'm not saying I can't get you $950. I am saying that I think I've made a mistake based on your home is beautiful, but it needs a lot of updates. I'd like to go away and reprice this looking at homes that need more updates in the area. And they were fine with that.
Because you were honest with them.
And so I'd already set that off my very first meeting. My next meeting with them, when I made the top 3, which was sweet, was I came with my real CMA, which said, we're going to list it $899, and I will get you somewhere between that $899 and $950 is my expectation.
Mm-hmm.
That's what we did.
And that's what you did.
So I was pretty aligned with that.
So they weren't hugely disappointed.
No, I mean, they were
They spent $75,000 on that house.
They were very
19
happy. They were very
And
happy.
he did a
1910.
lot of work.
I did a
Including
lot of work.
moving
my
furniture and
I did a
cleaning
lot
out
of work.
garages.
Let's
clean
talk
out.
about what went into getting that house ready and what you physically did, because I know you were in and out of that garage
I
sweating.
I literally, they
furniture.
needed so much hand holding. I can't describe how much hand holding they needed, and there was no one. They're in their 80s, so like there was no one there to help them
Help them
move
out.
furniture. There was no one there to help them like do things. Like even decluttering was
Overwhelming.
overwhelming. There was a lot of emotion in this house, and putting a squishy toy into a box was very difficult.
daunting
It was a
task.
daunting task. So I told them that we would bring. We have an excellent person that works with us. She comes in and she will rearrange your furniture and your life and declutter your house and help you do it. But it was such a big job that I couldn't just leave this person that we hire on her own to do it.
I mean,
I'm
remember
in.
the carpet?
Yeah,
Remember when we were talking about the carpet? So
Yeah.
we're all in the room together.
yeah.
And there was a carpet under the couch, and we made the recommendation gently to remove the carpet. And she was so emotional about that
Oh.
A
that
lot
we
of tears.
ultimately sort of told her that it's okay if it's that important.
The carpet ended up going, but it took weeks to get to the
It's a
point of
process.
removing
She made
the
a lot
carpet.
of progress
Yeah.
from that first meeting.
I mean, when I
the
first
end.
sat down for the listing appointment, there was tears
Yeah.
because she was selling her
It's
home.
emotional.
So anyway, yeah, we had. I moved. I literally moved. I spent days of moving furniture into their garage and helping them box things up, and with Ellen as well. The two of us were in there for days. Even on junk day, like we filled the right side of the garage with keepable stuff, the left side of the garage with the stuff that was going to go to Goodwill or be thrown out. Garbage day was on a Wednesday. I came over. I literally, one of my
Hauled
best
garbage.
friends in town, I had to get him to come and help me move furniture out into the street, like big heavy wooden furniture, onto the street to get stuff out because there was no one to help. We could, and I didn't feel comfortable hiring a removalist to move because they would just come in and be like, this is it would just be too rough. So it's like I spent so long on that.
And I think that's the beauty of the way we work. We really sort of meet somebody where they're at emotionally, where they're at educationally, and we kind of customize or curate a journey so that they're moving along the process in the time that they require. And I think so many people try to systemize a transaction, and you can't systemize a transaction because it's personal. It's somebody's life. It's somebody's memories. Do you all agree with that?
Well, that's what I was going to say, sort of feeding on Matt. I think every transaction needs an emotion. It has an emotion to it.
I've done some with some of the hedge fund guys.
Well, that's
they don't
different.
care.
They don't care.
They don't care.
But
It's
I feel
all
like
about the money.
lately I've been dealing with a lot of different people are all at different places in their
Absolutely.
life. So like each process, like a first-time home buyer is going to be very
Well, you have to identify
the personalities, what they
why
are.
they're selling.
Like everything is emotional, right? Like the one I told my story about, like that was emotional because it was like a 43-year-old home of memories, but it was ready to let it go. This is like that same situation. Like it was just like
I
emotion.
remember I walked away from the first listing appointment
so hard.
and I said, I don't know if I can do this listing. I'm not sure if I should do this listing because there was so much emotion, and you know me, guys. I'm just like,
let's go.
I'm like, I don't know. I don't handle other
great,
people's
though.
emotions
You
very.
did
You're
great.
kidding me,
Well-
really?
You did really good on
You
that.
don't?
When someone's crying in front of me, I'm like,
That's why he brought us all to that first appointment.
what do I do here? I'm like, yeah.
Or the best
I
is
hope
when
you're
Are
good.
you okay?
Wait,
Yeah.
the best is when he does something like this. All right, bring it in.
Yeah.
Bring it in.
I don't know how
And
to
you get a
react
big,
to it.
2-second hug.
Yeah.
I'm not
Bring
a
it in.
hugger.
Yeah, well, my wife and I were both high fivers. Like,
I get it.
we'd rather high five someone than give them a hug. But
I'm with you on that.
So
I'm
funny.
with you on that.
but yeah, I don't know. It was an interesting one.
So lastly, I
Very
want to talk about how do we set expectations for the shifting market? I mean, obviously we don't have a crystal ball, right? And I always say I wish I did because I'd be selling information in my pajamas, right? So going forward, now that we've seen, I would say 4-6 week pattern of shift, interest rates are between 7.5% and 8% right now, which is drastically changing buyer affordability. One of you made a comment yesterday and said that no matter how much the buyer saves, it seems like they can't get to the next place. So for both buyer and seller, how do you plan on having these conversations? What do those conversations look like to you? Matt,
Me?
seller, setting expectation for a seller.
I mean, now when you go into a listing appointment, it's going to be skewed with the comps, right? So the comps are a little bit skewed because they're so high right now after what we've come through, and the market shifted, and the sellers don't realize this yet. So right now, it's really showing, really communicating that there is a shift in the market happening, that interest rates are what they are. There's a shift in buyers' mentality right now. Their mentality towards wanting to drop their pants and give all the money is really not happening right now. They're becoming more tough and knowledgeable that there is a shift, and the sellers are going to have to understand this. So going into a listing appointments now, it's like communicating that to them is going to be key, and pricing on is going to be tough because you're going to have to show them comps that are just going to be
They're skewed.
a little bit skewed right now. I mean, unless they got the HGTV home. It's tough. So you're going to have tough conversations. You're going to have to communicate it well. And you probably might lose a few listings because we're going to be so truthful and honest about it.
Yep.
We're going to say what it is.
Because
Because if you don't,
Right.
don't with these sellers right now, and you get to that point and you're not selling, it's your fault.
Right.
And
They're going to be very disappointed.
And they're going to talk smack about you to other people, and that's what you can't have. So you got to tell them straight from the start. They still want to list higher because the comps say that. That's fine, but you've got to have had that conversation with them, and you've got to have the conversation with them, saying that when things don't sell, this
price reduction.
This is what we've spoke about, and it's got and that price reduction is hurting them anyway. So they're best off listening to your advice straight away, but I'm not sure they will.
So here's the best advice, and this is something that I did just recently. There were 3 units that were going on townhouse in a market, and recognizing the shift and getting ahead of it made the most sense. So 1 unit was priced at $725, 1 unit was priced at $710, and I told the sellers, and listen, the good thing is that they trusted me. So we priced at $699. It actually took 3 weeks for us to get an offer. And I think the strategy, if you can get the sellers to understand and trust you, is to slightly underprice the competition, because you will be the first one picked at that point. And although we have an inventory shortage, I'm still seeing that pattern right now. Here's the problem. If you don't do it that way, we now set the comp at $10,000 lower than our ask, right? So what then happens to the other 2? They're going to be bid on $10,000 less than that. So you either want to be the first guy out of the gate and get that less than expected offer and set the pattern, or you're going to be the follower, and it's always better to be the leader. Rhonda, your advice, setting expectations.
Well, I have a listing coming on in Hackensack, and I've had several conversations with them. I've already worked with these people before, and they've seen the comps, and they think that house is worth X. I've told them it's really not. It's really worth Y. They want to go with X. I've already told them that I'll go with them, but be prepared that we are going to probably have to make an adjustment, or the buyers are going to bring us an offer. I just think it's going to be different. And I've tried to set, to Matt's point, I've set that expectation every day for the last 6 days. I've talked to these people, had this continuous conversation before they even sign a listing agreement, so that they know
It's not
where
gonna be a
I
big
stand.
surprise when weeks
They
into
know.
it.
Yeah, so we've already done deals together. I think they trust me, but they need to see it sort of for themselves.
And
I
sometimes
think,
they do.
and they will.
Sometimes they have to.
They
take
started
that
high
journey.
on the other property. We got them a really great deal, and they trusted us. I think that's going to happen here again. It's just going to be a process, you know? And I have a family situation right now that's going on in my text messaging with a family property right now that wants to be priced at one number. I think it should be priced at another number. And we'll see where
Look,
that
ultimately,
goes.
we're just conduits of what the seller wants to achieve.
Agree.
Right? And if they want to list their property higher, despite the fact that we've shared our position, they have every right
They
to
can
do
do
so.
whatever they
Because
want.
again, there's that emotional component.
Right.
And if something's that fabulous, there's a buyer that will probably pay for
Right.
it. But if the house isn't exactly perfect,
It's not.
you really need to look at
You
that
have to
pricing
look at it.
strategy.
Agreed.
Michele.
I would, just from the other side of it with buyers, trying to navigate this whole thing, I've been working a lot closer with their lenders to try to really get them
A little vetted.
in the best situation they can, so that the offers you're putting in are going to have a chance. I have somebody right now who, it was an FHA loan they were qualified for. They were missing out on many, many deals. We readjusted pricing, we readjusted what we're looking at, and the lender is now qualified them at a different price point, but as a conventional loan, and we're hoping that that's going to help them
No, that's
have
great.
a better shot.
Well, I think the other thing that's going to help buyers right now is there truly is less competition. We're not seeing, I mean, it used to be, remember when we were doing spreadsheets between 26 and 40 buyers?
Yeah.
I don't even have to do a spreadsheet now.
No.
The offers that are coming in, I would say max I've seen 4. How about you guys?
Yeah.
Yeah.
About
So I think
same.
there's going to be a lot more opportunity for buyers.
They
you
have
know.
to, if they stick it out right now, there's definitely people falling off, and they'll have less competition, so if
They
they
have more
can...
options now.
Yeah, and now
And we
I'm
keep
seeing
an
a
eye
lot
on
more,
things that are on the market a little bit longer, and then you have a better shot.
I'm seeing a lot more full inspections too, so they don't really have to give up their first child, which is a good thing.
I've seen that.
In closing, we are so grateful that you joined us for our first ever podcast, and we hope to see you all next time.